I'd been asleep for maybe 40 minutes, the deep, dreamless kind you only get after a long week, when my phone lights up the nightstand like a flare gun. I'm 63 years old. I spent 31 years as a family attorney. My body still flinches at unexpected phone calls the way soldiers flinch at car backfires. Nothing good comes through a phone at 2 a.m. Not ever. The name on the screen stopped my heart for exactly one beat. Skyla. Welcome back to Dad's True Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember the people in these stories have every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. Not Anthony, not his wife Natalie. My granddaughter, 8 years old, calling me from what I assumed was her own bed in their house in Marietta, Georgia, a quiet suburb of Atlanta, where the lawns are too perfect and the smiles are too practiced and everything looks fine until you look closer. I answered before the second ring. Skyla, baby, what's wrong? The sound she made wasn't crying, not exactly. It was the sound a child makes when they've been crying so long they've run out of the wet part. Just breathe, shaking breath, like a car engine that won't quite turn over. Grandpa, she said, my name like it was the only word she had left. I was already sitting up, already reaching for my glasses, already calculating. Old habits. 31 years of family law teaches you to do math in your head before your feet hit the floor. Distance. 6 hours by car. 45 minutes by plane. Time for this, but doing it anyway. I'm here, I said. I'm right here. Tell me what happened. They left. 2 words. I made her repeat them because I honestly didn't believe what I heard. Who left, sweetheart? Daddy and Mama and Alex. Her voice cracked on the last name, her brother's name. Her brother, Anthony, and Natalie's biological son, 11 years old, who shares their jawline and their laughter and apparently their vacation plans. They went to Florida, to Disney World. I didn't say anything for a moment. Say that again. They went to Disney World, she repeated softer, like she was ashamed of it, like it was somehow her fault without me. They said I had school Monday, and it didn't make sense to take me. But Alex doesn't have school either. And Grandpa, he broke. Just broke. Why? Why didn't they take me, too? Here's what I want you to understand about that moment. I am a man who once cross-examined a sitting county judge, without blinking. I once argued in front of an appellate court with a 102 degrees fever because my client needed me there. I have delivered news to parents that no parent should ever receive. Custody lost. Rights terminated. Children gone. And I have done it with steady hands and a measured voice because that is what the job requires. I sat on the edge of my bed in Decatur, Georgia, 6 hours away from my granddaughter. And I had to press my fist against my mouth to keep from saying every single thing I was thinking. You didn't do anything wrong, I said instead. You hear me? Not one thing. Then why? I don't know yet, baby, but I'm going to find out. I don't know it yet, but I'm going to find out what would become the most important promise I'd make in the last decade of my life. I called my neighbor Joseph Wright at 2:11 a.m. Joseph is 71, retired Delta mechanic, and the only person I know who treats a middle-of-the-night phone call like a perfectly normal social event. Stephen. He picked up on the first ring, sounding completely awake. I've never understood that about him. I need you to watch the dog. Silence. Then how long? I don't know. Few days, maybe more. That's your granddaughter? I paused. Yeah, I'll be over in 10 minutes to get the key. That's Joseph Wright. Didn't ask a single question I didn't want to answer. I've known him for 22 years, and that man has never once in his life thought about his own business, except every time it actually mattered. Those are the friends worth keeping. I booked a flight on my phone while I was still in my pajamas. 6:15 a.m. out of Hartsfield, Jackson. Landing in Atlanta. At 7:02 a.m. Yes, I know it's barely a flight. It's more of a very expensive bus ride with pretzels. But I wasn't driving 6 hours at 2 a.m. I am 63, not 30. My back made that decision years ago. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went to my home office, opened the bottom left drawer of my desk, and took out a small digital recorder, the kind I used to carry to every client meeting before everything went to apps and cloud storage. Small, unobtrusive, the size of a lighter. I told myself it was just a habit. Old lawyer instinct. I'd figure out later whether that was actually true. I landed in Atlanta at 7:08 a.m. on a Thursday, 3 minutes late because the pilot encountered unexpected headwinds, which is airline speak for we don't really know either. I had a carry-on, my briefcase, my recorder in my breast pocket, and 31 years of family law sitting in my chest like a stone. I rented a car from the Hertz counter, a blue Chevy Malibu that smelled aggressively of pine air freshener, the kind that makes you wonder what smell it's covering up, and drove 22 minutes to Marietta. The house on Whitmore Drive looked exactly like I remembered, beige siding, two-car garage, flower beds that Natalie maintained with the intensity of someone whose self-worth depended on HOA approval. Which, to be fair, it might. Skyla must have been watching from the window because the front door opened before I reached the porch steps. She was in her pajamas, pink ones with little cartoon sloths on them. Her hair, dark, curly, the kind that needs attention and love and 45 minutes with a good detangler, was wild from sleep. Her eyes were swollen. She'd been crying since long before she called me. She didn't say anything. She just ran. I caught her at the bottom of the steps and held on. She wrapped her arms around my neck with the grip of someone who needed to make sure I was real. I felt her exhale against my shoulder. This long, shuddering breath like she'd been holding it for hours. Maybe she had. "I got you," I said. "Grandpa's got you." We stood like that on the front walkway for a while. The neighborhood was quiet. A sprinkler was running 2 houses down. A man walking a beagle gave us a polite nod as he passed. The way people in suburbs acknowledge each other. "I see you. I respect your privacy. Carry on." Eventually, I pulled back and looked at her face. "Have you eaten?" She shook her head. "Did you sleep at all?" She didn't sound convincing. "Okay." I picked up my bag with one hand and took her hand with the other. "Let's go inside. You're going to show me where everything is. And I'm going to make you the worst scrambled eggs you've ever had because you know I can't cook." She almost smiled. Almost. The house told me things before Skyla said a word. That's another old lawyer habit. Read the room before you read the people. The living room had family photos arranged along the hallway wall, the kind of curated gallery that says, "Look how happy we are." I walked slowly. I looked carefully. Alex's school photo, class of last year. Big grin. Anthony's nose. Anthony and Natalie, at what looked like the Grand Canyon. Alex, between them. All three laughing. Alex's Little League trophy on the hallway shelf. Alex's finger painting is framed, actually framed, on the wall beside the bathroom. I counted 11 photos in that hallway. You want to guess how many Skyla have in them? 2. One was her first day of school photo, slightly off-center, like it had been placed there as an afterthought. The other was a group shot, a Christmas photo, where she stood at the far left edge of the frame, half a step behind everyone else, like she'd wandered into someone else's family portrait. I stood there looking at that Christmas photo for longer than I should have. Skyla came up beside me and looked at it, too. "I don't like that one," she said quietly. "Why not?" She shrugged. "I look like I'm visiting." 8 years old. 8 years old, and she already understood what I was only beginning to document. I reached up and touched the recorder in my breast pocket. Over eggs, which were as promised truly terrible, Skyla talked about. I let her lead. Another old habit. Don't interrogate a witness. Just open a door and stand back. "When did they tell you they were going?" I asked. "Tuesday night after dinner." She pushed her eggs around. "Daddy said it was a last-minute trip for Alex's birthday. Alex's birthday isn't until..." I stopped myself. I knew when Alex's birthday was. It was 2 months away. "I know," Skyla said, not looking up. I didn't say anything, though. Why not? Because when I said something before about the camping trip, Mama got upset and said I was being selfish. And then Daddy didn't talk to me for 3 days. There it is. I kept my face neutral. Lawyer's face. The one I practiced for 3 decades so the judges couldn't read me. What camping trip? In September, they took Alex camping in Tennessee. They said I had a sleepover that weekend. But I didn't. Arya canceled. She said it plainly. Like it was just a fact. Like the hurt had been processed so many times, it had been worn smooth. So, I stayed home with Mrs. Patterson next door. Arya Rodriguez, Skyla's best friend from school. Filed that away. I didn't know it yet, but September would become Exhibit A. Skyla. I set down my fork. Has this happened before? Them going somewhere without you more than once? She looked at me for a long moment. Long enough that I understood she was deciding something. Deciding whether to trust me with the full weight of it. Then she nodded slowly, carefully, like the note itself cost her something. How many times, sweetheart? She looked at the ceiling, counting. My stomach dropped with every second of silence. A lot, she finally said. Grandpa, a lot. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. I pressed the record. I didn't know it yet, but the eggs were the last normal moment we'd had for a very long time. Anthony called at noon. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 12:43. Then Natalie tried at 1:15. At 1:47, Anthony left a message that I would eventually play in a courtroom. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you sincerely. Anthony Hall, my son, my blood, the boy I coached through Little League and drove to SAT prep and paid 2 semesters of college tuition for before he figured out what he actually wanted to do with his life, called my phone 4 times between noon and 1:47 p.m. on that Thursday. 4 times. Not once did he lead with, "Is Skyla okay?" I want you to sit with that. I replayed all 4 voicemails while Skyla napped on the couch, finally, mercifully asleep under the weighted blanket I'd found in the hall closet, the one she'd apparently dragged out herself sometime in the night. I sat at Anthony's kitchen table with my legal pad, my recorder, and a cup of coffee that was doing its level best to keep me functional. And I listened. Message 1, 12:02 p.m. Hey Dad. It's me. I'm guessing Skyla called you. I figured she might. Look. It's not. It's more complicated than it probably seems right now. Okay, just call me back. More complicated, right? Like differential calculus is complicated. As if leaving an 8-year-old home alone while you took her brother to Disney World was some kind of nuanced philosophical position requiring context. Message 2. 12:43 p.m. Dad, come on. Call me back. I know you're there. No, son, I'm here. There's a difference. Message 3. 1:15 p.m. This one was Natalie. I want you to know that Skyla was completely safe. Mrs. Patterson next door knew to check on her, and we left her food and she had her tablet. And she left an 8-year-old with a next-door neighbor on standby, like a houseplant, like something you water occasionally and hope for the best. I wrote, no emergency contact designated. Child left without legal guardian present. 31 years of family law. People. It comes back fast. Message 4. 1:47 p.m. Anthony again, and this one was different. This one had Florida background noise behind it. Music. Crowd chatter. The unmistakable sound of a theme park. A place designed to manufacture joy. My son was calling me from inside the Magic Kingdom to explain why his daughter wasn't there with him. Look, Dad, I need you not to make this into a whole thing. Skyla's fine. You being there is it's great. She loves you. This works fine for everyone. We'll be back Sunday. We can all talk then. Just keep her calm, okay? She gets dramatic. She gets dramatic. I set the phone down very carefully at the table. She gets dramatic. She's 8 years old, and she called her grandfather at 2:00 the morning because the people who were supposed to choose her chose not to. And the word he reached for was dramatic. I picked up my legal pad and wrote 3 words underlined twice. Pattern, documentation. Court. Skyla woke up around 3:30. Hair everywhere. Sloth pajamas rumpled. Looking approximately 7 years old, and somehow also about 40. Kids who've been through hard things get that look. Old eyes and a young face. I've seen it in courtrooms more times than I can count. "You stayed," she said, like she'd half expected me to be gone. "I told you I would." She sat up and pulled her knees to her chest. "Did Daddy call?" "He did. Is he mad?" "Oh." The audacity of that question. "Is he mad?" "No," I said. "He's not mad. How are you feeling?" "Hungry." Then quieter and kind of embarrassed. "About what?" "That I called you. That I cried." She picked at a loose thread on the blanket. "Mama says I'm too sensitive." I put my legal pad face down on the table. "Skyla, look at me." She did. Calling someone who loves you when you're scared and alone is not too sensitive. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. That's the whole point of having a grandpa. I paused. And for the record, I cried in a courtroom once. Full tears in front of a judge. Her eyes went wide. "You did?" The judge was not impressed, but the jury was. I stood up. "Come on, get dressed. We're not sitting in this house all day. Where are we going?" Good question. I hadn't entirely figured that out, but I knew we weren't staying inside 4 walls full of lopsided photo galleries and the ghost of every trip she hadn't been invited on. "We're going to get lunch. Real food, not my eggs." "Thank God," she said. I laughed out loud. First time since I'd landed. We ended up at a place called Rosie's Diner on Canton Street in downtown Marietta. The kind of restaurant that's been there since before the highway was built and refuses to update its decor or its menu on principle. Vinyl booths, laminated menus, a pie display case with actual rotating pies inside it. Skyla ordered a grilled cheese and a chocolate milkshake with the confidence of someone who has earned it. And I ordered the meatloaf because I am 63 years old and I have made my peace with who I am. Our waitress, her name tag, said Donna, which is exactly the right name for a woman in a diner like this, dropped off our drinks and gave Skyla a smile the way adults do when they can tell a child has had a hard time recently. "You got a good grandpa?" Donna asked her. Skyla looked at me. "Yeah," she said. "He's okay." "High praise," I said. Donna winked and left us alone. Over lunch, I did what I'd been careful not doing all morning. I asked questions slowly, gently, framed as conversation, not interrogation. But I'd be lying if I said the lawyer in me wasn't running a quiet deposition underneath every bite of meatloaf. "Tell me about your school play," I said. "The one in December. Your teacher sent me the program. You have a speaking part." Skyla's face did something complicated. "You saw that?" "Miss Peterson emailed me a copy, said you were wonderful." "I had 7 lines," she said with the quiet pride of someone who'd memorized that number. "I was the narrator." "Are Anthony and Natalie there?" The complicated thing happened on her face again. "Daddy came for a little bit," she said carefully. "He had to leave early because Alex had hockey practice." "And Natalie?" "She stayed with Alex." I nodded slowly, kept my voice even. "What about your birthday?" "March, right? You just turned 8 inches March." "We had cake." She said it simply. "At home. Just us. Daddy got me a tablet." She paused. "I heard them talking the night before. Mama said they should do a party. But Daddy said." She stopped. "You can tell me." She looked at her milkshake. "Daddy said they'd done Alex's big birthday at Great Wolf Lodge last year and they couldn't do big birthdays every year. It's too expensive." She said the last part in a slightly different voice, the careful mimicking voice kids use when they're quoting adults without realizing it. So, we just had cake. Alex's birthday is in October. Skyla's is in March. That's 5 months apart. 2 different years, 2 different budgets, 2 different scales of celebration. And somehow the too expensive argument had landed entirely on the adopted child's side of the ledger. I wrote nothing down. I didn't have to. Some things just burned directly into memory. Skyla, I set my fork down. Can I ask you something? And I need you to tell me the truth, even if you think it might get someone in trouble. Do you feel like in that house you and Alex are treated the same? Long pause. Donna refilled my coffee without being asked. The pie case rotates. A couple in the booth behind us argued quietly about whether to get dessert. Sometimes, Skyla said. Then more honestly, not really. Can you tell me one more time that happened? Something different from what you've already told me. She thought about it carefully. That old soul face again, weighing which truth to trust me with. Family photos, she finally said. At Christmas, we went to that place at the mall. The one with the backdrop and the matching outfits. She looked at me to make sure I was following. Mama picked red sweaters for her and Daddy and Alex. She forgot to get one for me. She paused. She said she ordered one, but it didn't come in time. So, what happened in the photos? I wore my school sweater. The blue one. Her voice was careful, measured, like she'd told herself this story many times and sanded down the edges. It's okay though, Arya said. I looked the best anyway because I stood out. Good friend. The kind of friend who finds the bright side. Where are those photos? I asked. Did they get printed? They're on the wall in the living room. I thought of the gallery wall. 11 photos. Skyla in 2. I thought of that Christmas photo. Her at the edge of the frame. Blue sweater half a step behind. Exhibit B. We got back to the house around 5. I'd stopped at a CVS and let Skyla pick out whatever she wanted. Nail polish, gummy bears, one of those little activity books with word searches and mazes. And she'd done so with the careful restraint of a child who'd been taught not to ask for too much. That broke something in me a little, that careful restraint. While she set herself up at the kitchen table with her word search and her gummy bears, I went into the hallway. I stood in front of that gallery wall for a long time. Then I took out my phone and I photographed every single image, every frame, every caption, every careful arrangement. I counted again, 11 photos. I documented who was in each one. Then I opened my recorder and spoke quietly just above a whisper. Thursday, approximately 5:15 p.m. Whitmore Drive, Marietta, Georgia. Subject: familial photo documentation in the hall residence. 11 photographs displayed in main hallway. Child Skyla appears in 2. In 1, she is visually separated from the family unit. In the second, she is wearing clothing inconsistent with the rest of the family, suggesting she was not originally included in the planning of the photographic session. Both images placed in low-traffic visual positions relative to the other photographs. I clicked it off, walked back to the kitchen, sat down across from Skyla, who was frowning at her word search with tremendous concentration. Grandpa, she said, not looking up, is parallel spelled with 2 L's or 1? She circled it triumphantly. Then, are you going to make me go back when they come home Sunday? I looked at her. She asked it so casually like she already knew the answer might be yes, like she'd built an entire emotional infrastructure around preparing for the answer to be yes. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I want you to know something. She looked up. Whatever happens, whatever I decide, whatever any adult in your life decides, I want you to know that you are not an afterthought. You are not an inconvenience. You are not a blue sweater in somebody else's Christmas photo. I kept my voice steady. Lawyer steady. You are the whole point, Skyla. You understand me? She stared at me for a long moment. Then her chin wobbled just once. She stopped it. Okay, she said softly. Okay, I said back. She went back to her word search. I went back to my legal pad. I didn't know it yet, but Sunday wasn't going to go anything like Anthony was planning. He called again at 7:52 p.m. This time I answered. Dad? The relief in his voice was immediate. Then cautiously. How is she? She's fine. She's here. She's safe. I paused. No thanks. To anyone currently in Orlando. Silence. Dad. Anthony. I said his name the way I used to say it in courtrooms when I needed someone to understand they were no longer in a casual conversation. I'm going to ask you a question and I need you to answer it honestly. Okay. When was the last time Skyla was included in a family trip? Long pause. Longer than it should have been. The length of that pause told me everything. We took her to. He stopped. Started again. It's been a hard year financially, Dad. You don't understand. The camping trip. I said. September, Tennessee. Alex went. Silence. The Christmas photos. I said she was in a blue sweater. More silence. Her birthday was cake at home. I said Alex's was Great Wolf Lodge. Complete silence now, the kind that has weight. Anthony, I kept my voice level, measured. A scalpel, not a hammer. I'm not calling you a bad person right now. I'm asking you to tell me honestly. When you look at what I just listed, what do you see? He didn't answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Quieter. Something underneath it that I recognized because I'd heard it in courtrooms from people who'd finally run off the road. I don't know how it got like this, he said. And there it was. Not a defense, not an excuse, just a man looking at his own reflection and not being able to explain the person looking back. I took a slow breath. We'll talk Sunday, I said. All of us. In person. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, Dad. I hung up. I sat in the kitchen of his house at his table drinking his coffee. I opened my laptop and began drafting the petition. If you've been listening for a while and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do, but that's what keeps this whole thing running. So, thank you for real. Anthony and Natalie walked through the front door at 4:17 p.m. with Mickey Mouse ears and sunburned shoulders and the fragile smiles of people who'd spent 4 days pretending everything was fine. Skyla was sitting at the kitchen table doing her word search. She didn't look up. That hurt him more than anything I could have said. I watched it land on his face like a gavel. Hey, baby girl, Anthony started. She can hear you, I said from the doorway. Whether she responds is her choice. Natalie's eyes cut to me. Stephen, we should talk privately. We should, I agreed. But first, Anthony, check your mailbox. He frowned, went to the door, came back holding a manila envelope, the kind with a little metal clasp that means, this is official, and you should sit down. What is this? That, I said, is a petition for de facto custodianship of Skyla Hall, filed Friday morning in Cobb County Superior Court. I let that breathe for exactly 2 seconds. I've been busy. Natalie's face went white. You can't. I did. 31 years of family law, sweetheart. I didn't forget everything. Anthony stood very still. He opened the envelope slowly. The way people open things they already know will change their lives. His eyes moved across the first page. Then he sat down. Just sat down right there in the hallway. I didn't feel triumphant. I feel tired and certain. Which is better, Dad? His voice was hollow. I have recordings, I said quietly. I have photographs. I have dates, Anthony. Every trip, every birthday, every school plays with an empty seat where 2 parents should have been sitting. I have a pattern so clear that I could present it to any judge in Georgia and win before lunch. Natalie started crying. I handed her a tissue, because I'm not a monster. I'm not doing this to destroy you, I said. I'm doing this because that little girl asked me why at 2 a.m. and nobody in this house had a good answer. Anthony looked up. His eyes were red. I know, he said, barely audible. I know, Dad. Are you going to fight it? Long silence. The longest silence of my life. Maybe. Longer than any verdict I'd ever wait on. He shook his head. There it was. The hearing was 14 days later. Cobb County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Wynn presiding. A woman who had approximately zero tolerance for nonsense and excellent instincts about children. Anthony showed up with no attorney. He explained for 11 minutes. He said quietly and without drama that he loved his daughter, but that he had failed her in ways he was still trying to understand, and that his father could give her something he clearly hadn't. Consistency. Priority. A front row seat. Judge Wynn granted de facto custody to me, Stephen Collins, effective immediately. I looked over at Skyla, sitting beside my attorney, Josephine Carter, in her best purple dress. She was already looking at me. She didn't cry. She just nodded. That same small, serious nod like we'd made a deal, and she was confirming receipt, like she finally believed it. On the drive home, she was quiet for a while. Then, "Grandpa, am I your first choice?" I kept my eyes on the road, Marietta scrolling past the windows, ordinary and golden in the late afternoon. "You're my only choice," I said. "Always were." She put her hand over mine on the gear shift. That was enough. That was everything. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories.